Bitcoin is peace. Yeah, right. Maybe in the minds of hard money hippies begging state actors to lay down their arms, buy Bitcoin, and be nice to each other. Those crazy Bitcoiners. Ha, they are delusional. They are delusional, right? I think Anakin has a feeling about Bitcoin's impact on the world as a money system, affecting things as native to humanity as warfare. So let's dive in. This ain't no science fiction.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
It's Sir Ulric and my signal meter is yellow. People everywhere have a multitude of opinions about warfare. Not even Bitcoiners are aligned on this. War, a state of open, hostile armed conflict between states or nations, is the physical manifestation of proof of stake. Countries using their coercion to determine the consensus state of property. Due to the control of nearly all property through taxation and violence, these countries acting as validators with enough power have the capability to change the chain of custody to reflect the country's preference. You may have heard war is proof of work, but you know that can't be the case. It seems like every week there's a new foreign aid disbursement to a warring state or an expansion on military spending. Where does it all come from? Definitely not exchanging energy for consensus. It is a decree or fiat in exchange for buying power. You may follow some highly regarded political personalities that claim these are your tax dollars at work. But no matter what country you're from, they don't need an ounce of tax dollars to execute their incentives of foreign aid or defense. In 2023, the US federal government had given almost $62 billion in economic aid to foreign states, as reported. Also in 23, they spent $1 trillion in defense investments, a significant fraction of the $6.3 trillion in total expenditures. But total monetary receipts? Only $4.7 trillion. The US government spends 33% more than they bring in, and that number is not expected to improve. And your federal taxes, only $2.8 trillion of those total receipts, is just not making a difference like most people claim. So where does that money come from? Well, it comes from the ability to create it out of thin air. This is equivalent to bending reality around your will. Remember the Saylor series from Breedlove's What is Money? Check this out.
Bitcoin is a cyber economy based upon the principles of truth, respecting the laws of thermodynamics, respecting Newton's laws.
Bitcoin adheres to the first law of thermodynamics by keeping its monetary energy within an isolated system. Does fiat do the same thing? Yes, it does. Fiat monetary energy does not leave the system, it is just transferred to places where you can't access it, aka the Cantillon effect. The Cantillon effect is one of the main contributors to not only incentivizing the creation of military products, but using them as well. And now we get into the process loop. Expand the monetary supply, spend on new weapons, use old weapons with a shelf life on asymmetric targets, weapon inventory reduced, expand the monetary supply. Meanwhile, expending the expiring arms on a weaker target can also double count in hindering a rival economy from advancing. This due to individuals in that domain are pulled into a struggle for survival and don't have the privilege to progress in peace. While Cantillionaires kill your buying power at home, they are literally killing flesh and blood elsewhere. This can be either a direct or proxy involvement. This chain of events can go on forever as long as an ethereal budget with no ceiling or constraints can be expanded. How much money can the owners of the fiat system create to exert their will? Simply put, as much as they need to. It is said that we only act with the incentives we are given. But when the system encourages you to literally take the lives of non-combatants to compete, there is a systemic problem. If you value human life, the system must change. In Culture Corner, we have love and peace. Tolstoy said if everyone fought for their own convictions, there would be no war. There is no denying this statement, for everyone's incentives are so divergent and unique that there can never be enough people gathered together to make any incursion on another group. Can even be said that only through extortion and coercion, sometimes in the form of conscription, that any political figure can send anyone to war. But what about Bitcoin? Bitcoin doesn't magically turn people into pacifists, but it does magically impact people's incentives. The reintroduction of hard money into society will cause people to re-evaluate value exchange. The individuals now compensated in fringe benefits and fiat will demand Bitcoin in the future if you want them to fight for you. The weapon makers who were once satisfied with political advantage and helicopter money would not make a single missile if it weren't paid for in Bitcoin. Why would defense manufacturers do such a thing? Because the engineers they pay would also demand it. So soldiers demand Bitcoin, the weapons dealers demand Bitcoin. What's a government with warring ambitions to do? They must acquire some Bitcoin. In order to accumulate a meaningful sum of Bitcoin, the government must practice austerity. Increasing taxes reduces the productive capacity of its citizens, and printing fiat in this scenario would be no different than you making money in your own home. It would be just as counterfeit. For the US government to maintain their current military spending and stay solvent, they would have to cut out at least 1.6 trillion of spending elsewhere. Where would that cut be? Education, healthcare, social security? Here's one place they can't cut: the interest on their almost $35 trillion in debt and growing. The net debt interest owed is just about $815 billion at the time of this recording, but by the end of this year, it looks to be even bigger than defense spending. Imagine you want to build rockets to fight a bigger war, but the creditors are knocking on your door and you can't magically kick the can down the road. No more rockets. In a world where Bitcoin is the apex money, bills must be paid. I'm not saying that loans or credit disappear, of course not. But if the loans are in Bitcoin, what do you think the payments will be in? Creditors that don't want to go out of business in a hard money world will hold debtors of all sizes accountable and will expect Bitcoin as payment, not freshly created fiat. The defense budgets everywhere will be impacted by their government's inability to operate without a deficit. Unless they decide to walk back all that free healthcare, education, and welfare, something's got to give. It's just math. Be not one of those who give pledges, who put up security for debt. But because governments cannot help themselves from that temptation, thus destroying the money everyone uses, Bitcoin will do it for them. If you want another 100 tanks, unless you can find someone to produce it for free, you will need to pay that person in money based on saved energy. Less saved energy means fewer weapons produced in the name of an insolvent state. This does not mean war will cease to exist, for as long as there are human hearts, there will be reasons why two groups of people dislike one another. But this forever fountain of destruction in the form of a central bank is on the clock. Bitcoin saves the world from this fiat standard nightmare we are in. Throughout history, the most successful war aggressors were the ones that could operate for an extended amount of time due to remarkable resources, funding, or supply chain. In this fiat era, war efforts can be funded by an entire economy without their knowledge through money printing. Bitcoin would take that characteristic away, forcing war back to natural limitations, returning the advantage to the defensive, non-encroaching participant. If war loses its likelihood for profitability, it becomes a less sought-after venture. It has to make you wonder, what else could people build when they spend less time building things for the sake of destruction? I am Sir Ulric, like my father before me. Bitcoin is peace in a sly, roundabout way.